Now, we're starting to look at solo drills for top position. Let's understand that there are far fewer solo drills from top position than there are from bottom, but they're important ones nonetheless. Probably the single most important skill when we're in top position in Jiu-Jitsu is the skill of passing your opponent's guard. Now, many of the movements associated with passing a guard do require a training partner, but there's a few that don't. Probably one of the more important ones that don't require a partner are the idea of standing up inside an opponent's closed guard in order to open it. Okay, so let's look at the solo drill associated with that. We're going to be inside an imaginary opponent's closed guard. He's got his legs around us, and from here with our hands based on our training partner's biceps. From here we're going to stand up by putting one leg up and turning the other leg out. So as I go up to one leg, you'll notice my left leg goes up and my right leg goes out. This widens my base of support. My feet are very close together. That's not good. If I stand up like this, my feet are too close together, I'll have no base of support. So from here, we have to widen the base of support. That's how we do it. Then we come up to a second leg, and from this position, we come up into vertical posture. I want to finish with my shoulders over my hips. If my shoulders are in front of my hips, I can be pulled forward onto my toes and pulled back into various kinds of attack from guard position. So what we're looking for here, when we go to stand up, we have an imaginary opponent. We're locked in his closed guard. We pop up one, elbow and knee close together, elbow and knee close together. And then from here, the hands come back and we come up into vertical posture. Hips forward, chest and shoulders back. And from here, we can look to open an imaginary opponent's closed guard. So once again, there's our start position. Pop up, 1, 2, into vertical posture. Facing the camera. Start position. Vertical posture, and we're ready to pass. We have a training partner with us. From an initial closed guard, we have hands on the biceps. We pop up, 1, 2, elbows come back, vertical posture, and then from here, we look to open our training partner's closed guard. Hands on biceps. Stand up to the hip line. Vertical posture, hips forward, and opening the closed guard. If you want to get a little more realistic with your movements, you might also incorporate, over to the side for a minute, you might also want to incorporate the idea of stepping out of your opponent's hands. Since when we go to stand up in a closed guard, a common thing is for our opponent to grab our ankles. So as we come up into vertical posture, we use a step out. This mimics the action when we come up into vertical posture. Often they will grab, drop their knees, and from here look to knock us down. So we practice the skill of vertical step outs so we get away from his hands. As he goes to grip our ankles, he drops his knees. If I just stay here, he can knock me over. I can't kick straight back, locked tight to my ankles. I can't kick my legs straight back. He's holding in that direction. So I have to go forward and out. High leg and out. Okay? So once again, we pop up and high leg out. So in solo drill, we would come up into vertical posture, high leg and out. This is a useful way to drill the actions associated with standing up and opening a closed guard. Another very valuable skill that we need to work solo in top position are footwork skills associated with passing an open guard. Probably the one which is the most obvious is Toreando type footwork drills, where I have to go from a situation where I'm relatively square to my opponent to one where I step and step my feet to the side so that I misalign myself relative to my opponent. I have an angle on my opponent and I can start passing. So if I start off square with the camera, we get a step and then I change my orientation from facing this way here and turning my body 90 degrees so that my legs are now lined up with my opponent and we're in a position to push his legs out and away from us. So the motion is a small side step and then a back step. We come back square, small side step, back step. Square, side step, back step. And in this way, we create an angle on an opponent. So if we have an imaginary opponent in front of us, sorry, have a real opponent now, we're in front of our training partner just like so. We want to create a situation where I create an initial angle on my training partner, and then I come out to an angle out to the side. I come back in front of my training partner, a small side step, and then a back step that puts me in a position out here at an angle ready to begin passing. So there's that first movement, just out to the side, and then it turns to an angle. I don't want my opponent hooking into this leg. That's going to create all kinds of problems. So the idea is I won't give him a leg to hook into. Once we get a hold of our training partner here, I just take my leg back and away, and we're in a good position to pass. And either side, we find ourselves out to an angle now. So that's the first form of footwork. Second form of footwork is a cross step, where I take a side step and a step around my opponent's legs. Side step, crescent step. Side step and crescent step. Side step and crescent step. And this too can be very useful. I'll demonstrate it first on a seated opponent. From a seated situation, I side step and then I crescent step around behind my opponent, forcing him into a defensive belt posture. So we post, side step, crescent step up to the hip line. Side step, crescent step, shoulder step. Side step, crescent step, shoulder step. On a supine opponent, similar things. From here, side step, crescent step, shoulder step. When this is combined with hand work, you'll see that it's pretty easy for us under these circumstances to get into good position on our opponent. So these are some simple solo drills. The Toreando drill, where we practice the skill of moving our legs to an angle. Then side step, crescent step, shoulder step to get up to and beyond our opponent's hip line. These are some simple footwork patterns that make a difference for your guard passing skills. Let's start to look at solo drills for the standing position. The first and most important is that of stance and motion. From a situation where we're standing in front of an opponent, we're going to play between square stances, which are predominantly defensive in nature, okay, and staggered stances, which are predominantly offensive in nature and allow us to go into a lunge position, which will enable us to attack an opponent and shoot on a takedown. When we're mostly interested in defense, we're interested in getting our legs back and away from our opponent. Typically, square stances tend to work very, very well. But when it's time to actually engage in offense, typically we'll have a leg forward and ready to work. Most of the time, when we go to reach an opponent, we'll reach with the rear hand. That's not always true, but a lot of time it is. The idea is that if I start reaching too much with the lead hand, I leave my leg, the one that's closest to my opponent, quite vulnerable to being shot. So what we want is a hand, defensive hand, in front of the leg that forms a barrier between my leg and my opponent. That leaves us a rear hand to reach with and pull, push, tie up wrists. Once we make contact with the rear hand, then we can safely bring the lead hand up. Okay. As we do this, we have to move in short, choppy steps around the mat. I don't want to stand up too tall. It's very easy enough for my opponent to get on my legs. But on the other hand, jiu-jitsu matches are longer than wrestling matches. So it's not realistic to expect us to be bent over all the way as we would in a short wrestling match for a 10 or 20 minute jiu-jitsu match. Rather, we tend to work more from a semi-crouch where our shoulder is over our lead knee, just like so. And as a result, it's a little more relaxed and easier to work with for long periods of time. If, however, I see my opponent is in a radically lower stance than myself, I may well be tempted to bring my head down to match his head level, unless, of course, I'm trying to bait him into an attack on my legs to go into guillotines or what have you. But basically, our measure is what is the height of our training partner's head. And if it's low, we'll go lower. If it's higher, we'll go a little higher. And then from here, we work short, choppy steps, switching stances, etc., around the mat, and working between square stance and coming back into a staggered stance. Working like so, reaching mostly with the rear hand, like so, keeping a defensive knee and elbow together, so it's going to be hard for our opponent to shoot at. One of the major defensive movements associated with the standing position is that of sprawling. An opponent tries to shoot in on our legs. Our goal is to get our legs to move down and away from our opponent. He's looking to bring the legs in and up. We're looking to get our legs down and away. The way this is often taught is in terms of a radical throwing of the hips and legs back to the mat. Often that's a form of overreaction, which can leave you in a very extended, vulnerable position to a second or another form of offense from your opponent, where he fakes and takes advantage of your overextended position, where he snaps you down to the floor, etc., etc. As a general rule, what we're looking to do with our first element of defense is get our knees to the mat. And then based upon what we see, then from there we decide going into a full sprawl or what have you. A much less radical form of defense to a sprawl is a simple down block. And the majority of our initial defense is actually more of a down blocking action than a full sprawling action. So let's have a look at the idea of a down block from a situation where we work from front of an opponent, and I have my defensive hand, elbow and knee close together. As I reach like so, my opponent is mostly going to be interested in shooting on the leg that's closest to him. From here, when I see my opponent go to work, we're going to focus on bringing our hand to the floor and the leg goes back. So I'm not sprawling. I just put a defensive hand in front of my opponent so the arm is there as a barrier and he goes onto my arm. Okay, so if I have my right leg forward, my right arm is my defense arm. It'll also be my offense arm too. We'll cover that another time. From here, as he goes into to shoot, my leg goes back and my hand goes down to the floor. I don't want him just getting into the leg. So defensive hand goes down, the body goes down with it, and the leg goes back like so, giving him very little to work with. If necessary, you could go into a sprawl from here, but if your opponent merely faked and didn't go in on the leg, you'd be in a good position just to resume working in the standing position. So here we are, we have a given staggered stance, and we just practice that down blocking action. That's a fairly conservative method of defense that doesn't put us in a vulnerable, overextended position. When we practice sprawling, we just practice mostly going down to a knee. So there's a level change. When I see him coming in, we practice just coming down to our knees like so. If the guy gets in on the leg, that's when we'll begin that full sprawling action, shoelaces down to the mat, legs down and away. But when I just come down to a knee, if it all turns, my opponent's shot was a fake one, I'm still in a pretty good position to defend myself. Okay, I'm athletic here and I can get back up. Now, how we get back up is very important. The naive thing to do is just to put a leg up and then you're very vulnerable to a second form of shot. Okay, so the right thing to do most of the time here is to circle up. So we still have our defensive hands down on the floor, we put our legs up, and from here, with my legs back and away from my opponent, I start the action of circling back up to my feet. So I never offer him a free second shot at my legs. So the first defensive movement is the most conservative. That's the down block, where my opponent shoots, or at least pretends to shoot, and from here, we just down block. He comes onto my defensive arm, just like so. Now, when we see a more serious shot at the legs, from here we just go down with our knees on the mat. We don't get overextended, okay? We're in a position now where we can recover by circling back up to our feet. So we go in, down block, sprawl, make a decision where we want to go. It's usually down and away with the legs. And if it turns out his shot wasn't a real one, then we circle back up to our feet. Down block. Knees down to the mat, legs back and away, and circle back up to our feet. If we bring a training partner in, if we're here in the standing position and my opponent shoots out on my lead leg, boom, I just bring the leg back and away. So I have a defensive hand, he goes to shoot, we just bring the leg back and away. He shoots, the leg goes back and away, now you're in a position to go back in on him. If my opponent goes in a more serious fashion on my legs, and from here, we just get the knees down like so. Arms in front, or tight waist in, just like so. When he goes in on the legs, we make a decision now about how serious the sprawl will be. If he's really trying to come in hard on the legs, we're looking at always to stuff, get our hands to his knees, and create situations where we get the legs down and away. Now, if I have an opponent in front of me,
and I fake a shot, and my opponent goes down to his knees, like so. If he's naive and just puts his leg up, he gives me an opportunity now to hit a second shot that'll put him down. Okay, so we can't be naive in the way in which we come back up. If my opponent fakes a shot on me and I come down like so, I don't just come up and give him a second shot. That's not the way to do things. Rather, we put the legs out and we circle back up to our feet. So we're in a good defensive stance, ready to engage once again. Okay? So once again, if I have an opponent in front of me and I just fake a shot, he goes down to his knees. If he just naively puts a leg up, I'll go right back into my opponent and put him back down. Okay, so it's important when someone fakes that shot and we come down to our knees. From here, the way we get back up is always to circle back up in a conservative fashion where we're ready to defend ourselves. So these are some simple ideas for your solo drilling in the standing position. One of the most important skills you're going to have to develop is that of carrying your opponent's body weight off a takedown. The most common reaction to any form of leg takedown is always going to be some kind of sprawling action, okay, where you're going to get stuck underneath your opponent's body weight. What we're looking to avoid is situations where we're in on a leg and we get extended with our head down to the mat. This is a position from which recovery is extremely difficult, and it's very likely our opponent will score on us either by taking our back or even going to submission holds. Okay, that's what we're actively trying to avoid. What we're trying to create are situations where you can successfully carry someone's weight even when they're sprawling on you and go through to finish your takedown successfully. That means, in general, a posture which our hips are forward, the body is relatively upright, and the head is upright. And from here, we can move and carry weight that's on top of us. So we practice the skills of starting on our knees, and from here with an imaginary opponent in front of us, we practice the skill of going in on a leg and holding a posture which is relatively upright. This might be a double leg situation, like so, or it might be the single leg situation, like so. The main idea is that we're trying to avoid extension with head down. Rather, once we make contact with a given leg, we're always looking to keep our body relatively upright and in a position where we can bear weight as someone stands over us. So if we have a training partner in front of us, once I get in on a given leg, like so, when he goes to sprawl, in situations like this, I want to be able to keep my body relatively upright. I want to be able to switch across to the other side and get to situations where we can take people reliably down to the floor and work successfully. What we're looking to avoid is situations where his leg goes back and we get extended as the leg goes further and further back down to the mat like so. It's almost inevitable now that the opponent will score on us. So we need situations where once we get in on a given leg, from here, he goes to pull those legs back and work. We can get up to our feet from here and into good working positions like so. So we're going to start this idea of getting in on a leg, body upright. He goes to sprawl, and you can carry your opponent's weight. You can step successfully across your opponent and make a switch to another form of takedown. Okay, if necessary, you can come up behind your opponent and work successfully from the mat. It's all about that good upright body posture, which we always practice in terms of head up, chest forward, working down on the mat, consciously avoiding situations where the head goes down and we get extended.